Enjoy a taste of spirit with delicious dishes and mediumship. Welcome to the Deb and Chris Show.
Love that.
So are you ready for the Michael Jackson story?
Yeah. Is this the one that you were
Well, don't tell it.
No, I don't know it.
Do you know the Michael Jackson
No,
one?
the one that you said you were talking to Dad about.
Oh, no. The
Okay.
one I was talking about. Okay. The one that at the end that I have to tell you, that's not the Michael Jackson story,
Okay.
will knock your socks
I
off.
don't know what it is either. So.
No. Okay. But did you ever
think I
hear the John Lennon story?
No.
So
I haven't heard any of it.
So then she hasn't heard any of them. Because really, they're not
We
stories
don't
I
talk
usually
when we're not
share.
doing this.
Just kidding. We only get along here.
Yeah, that's right. It's all fake.
Oh, this is looking so pretty. I love it. Okay. Yeah, Spirit's happy about this. I can feel it. Okay. So Michael Jackson. So there was no connection to Michael Jackson. I'm just going into a normal session, my day-to-day sessions. And when I go out my back patio and down my back stairs, I head towards my back studio. So this particular day, I walk out the back and I walk down the stairs, but I'm halfway down the stairs, and at the bottom of the stairs is standing Michael Jackson looking at me. And I went, nah, no, there's no Michael Jackson here. Do you know what I mean? Like my head is
that's
like
not a thing.
doubt, right? Now, here's a little kind of trick or tip, if I can tell at this point, is that if I see a spirit and the spirit is static, kind of like a photograph, they're not moving, they're not talking, then spirit is giving me an image of someone to talk about them. But if I see the person and they are moving and talking to me, then it's them themselves.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So sometimes when I'm in a session, I might hear or I might see a spirit. Say I see an ant of somebody and I describe what the ant looks like. Maybe the name comes, maybe not. Maybe there's other factors that come. But the ant is not moving or is not animated. Then maybe the grandmother is talking about the ant, or the father is talking about the ant, but it's not the ant herself talking. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So when I see the ant moving and talking, then I know it's the ant talking, if that makes sense. Anyway, so, but in this particular case, I was looking at Michael Jackson and I was like, it can't be Michael Jackson. And he said, just trust me. And I was like, okay. Now you have to understand, even after 15 years, every single session I go into, I'm nervous beforehand because I still think this is the craziest thing.
Yeah.
Like we did not grow up with mediumship. This is not a normal thing. For a lot of people, this is not normal. It still sounds crazy to me on the face of it many times. I don't know how it works. It just
and that's
happens.
why I'm always asking you. I'm like, oh, well, you say that, but like, what does that actually mean? Like, how did you actually become that or see that? Did you physically see it? What is that?
Yeah. Sometimes I physically see it. Sometimes it's just a seeing inside my head. Sometimes it's seeing outside of me. Sometimes it's like audibly there's interruptions. I hear people yelling at me, or I hear a lot of background chatter.
So it can be a bit of anything. It can be like see it, smell it.
Think of all your senses.
Yeah.
Being on like the highest vibrancy. Do you know what I mean? Like you're in a party room half the time.
Yeah.
There's so much is going on. Anyway, so what was I saying about Michael Jackson? So I was nervous going into the session. I'm normally nervous anyway, but I was really nervous now because I don't want to sound like a lunatic.
Yeah.
Saying to these people, oh, Michael Jackson's with me. Like, do you know how stupid? It sounds so stupid. So, but I thought, okay, well, this has never happened to me before. I think at that point, it was a couple years ago. So maybe I was doing mediumship for 13 years. I'd never seen Michael Jackson. So I go into the Zoom session. There's a couple of women there. And I said, look, I know this is going to sound nuts, but we need to talk about Michael Jackson because I came down my back stairs. There's Michael Jackson. What's your connection to Michael Jackson? They're like, and I can see already.
Oh, shoot. Yeah.
I can see already. Like they're looking like, okay, lady. Like, okay, people who come to see me, they've got my name from someone else. So I don't advertise for people to come. They've got my name from someone else.
Credibility
so usually people have heard, oh, I had a good session, whatever. But really, lady, you're going to start off with Michael Jackson.
Yeah.
What's your connection to Michael Jackson? Anyway, so they're like nothing. And I'm like, listen, this doesn't ever happen to me. So I turned back to Michael and I said, you have got to tell me
Yeah.
what's going on. And he said, they were talking about me 10 days ago.
Yeah.
I said, okay. He said you were talking about him 10 days ago. The woman's like, no. I'm like, listen, these are not the times we're talking about Michael Jackson. Nothing new about Michael Jackson has come up. I understand. But he's saying, like, seriously, it's like a week to 10 days ago, you were talking about Michael Jackson. She's like, no, we weren't. I'm like, you were. You'd got to go back. Go back.
I love that you're telling her exactly what she was doing.
I said, go back like 10 days ago. I can't remember. It was either he said 7 or 10 days. I said, you need to go back to that time. I said, what was happening then? She goes, well, okay, my husband was in the hospital. And I said, okay, your husband was in the hospital. Why was he in the hospital? Well, he had an allergic reaction or he had something bad happen with a drug that he was taking. And then she went, oh my God. She said,
that was the connection.
She said, we were in the hospital. The nurse came in. My husband had a terrible reaction to this medication. The nurse came in and we were all talking. And she said, this is how Michael Jackson died.
Oh my God.
She said, the nurse said, this is how Michael Jackson died. Was the reaction to this, I guess, same medication. He was right. They had talked about him the week before. But here's the thing. You would think, well, why Michael, why that's an outlandish reach.
Yeah.
But it's not, because if you think about if you forget that he's Michael Jackson and you just think about him as an expansive being that died the way that he did.
Yeah.
That's personal to him. In spirit, he sees that this woman here has a husband who could have passed the same way as him.
Yeah.
By having this, reaction or being connected to this particular drug. I don't know what it was. That this could have happened to him too. There's already an empathy or an understanding there. And his name was spoken.
Okay, but how did it come to you though?
I don't know. I can't explain that part. I can't explain that part, except that I'll put it this way. If it wasn't literally Michael Jackson himself, all I can say is I was seeing Michael Jackson. I was told to trust. He literally insisted that his name was spoken. He was being talked about 10 days earlier.
Crazy.
And he was right, even though my client was saying no. And by the way, this happens a lot. There's lots of times. There was a woman not too long ago who messaged me or sent me an email because in her family, in her session with me, a man came forward saying his name was Thomas. His name was Thomas, and he was a Scotsman. And she said, no, we're not Scottish. There's no Scotsman in our family. We're Irish. And
he said, no, you're
and
not.
I said, well, he's a Scotsman. He says his name is Thomas. He belongs to you. Well, it turned out that when she went and checked with her aunts, they said, no, there's no one Scottish in the family and there's no Thomas. But a few months later, when they were doing the genealogy, Thomas was like their great-great-grandfather from Scotland.
Wow.
And so he was right. So I know now just to trust what I'm seeing and hearing and feeling, because they're usually right. But I don't always understand it in the moment.
Take people to start trusting. Like, I mean, you work with a lot of people who are trying to open themselves to it. So how long does it really take people to start?
I don't know. I think that's individual. But what I do love is because I'm a skeptical person,
Yeah.
because I never would have believed in this stuff before, because it happened to me. There was a lot of times, even Dad was like, oh, I don't know, Deb. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And things started to, like, my family started to see stuff. You know, my poor brother, he still is like, thinks I'm way out there. But that's okay, because he hasn't given it a chance. I don't fault him for that. I was that way too.
He does message you to find out where the deer are. When
No, I message him. He tells me
he's
he's going hunting. And I say, well, look for it. It's going to be on your left to the far. It's just a joke. I play with him. But that's okay, because really, honestly,
Yeah.
mediumship, spirit connection, this is not for everybody.
Mhm.
But I really do wish that it was, because number one, it's nothing to be afraid of.
Right.
And if actual authentic mediumship is happening, then without a client saying a word, there should be a quality of information that's coming forward that isn't just general,
Mhm.
that the personality and structure of the family, and maybe things like names don't always come, but I'm going to say a great majority of the time they
Yeah.
do, but not always. But the structure of families, things that have happened recently, there should be enough demonstration that the spirit's talking. And you should never, ever, ever hear from a medium that a loved one in spirit is struggling. It just simply isn't true.
Yeah.
I promise you, in 15 years, there's never been a spirit that's struggling. It just isn't true. When we move from this state of awareness and being, there are angels, there are spirit guides, there is a loving energy, a loving deity, there is our family that's gone on before us in spirit. You think that any person leaving this very difficult physical incarnation would move into that world and be lost or stuck, or when those beings are around to support and love? I'm sorry, I just don't buy it, unless the spirit themselves was still choosing to disregard that or disconnect. But I believe that we're lovingly tended to from the moment of our passing. So please don't worry about your loved ones, and don't listen to anybody. I remember a woman came to me once and said that somebody had told her, a medium had told her, that her brother could not move on because he was so angry and he was so upset that there was so much discord in the family that he could not move on until the family settled their
horrible
stuff. No, I have people sit in front of me that cry over the thing that they heard in mediumship or in a psychic session, and it's devastating to me, because the majority of it just simply isn't not true. And so anyway, that particular brother demonstrated himself very beautifully in our session. And here's part of the confusion. So sometimes spirit is expressing distress, anger, upset, frustration, those kinds of things. But it's when they were living. They're trying to talk about what was happening either before they were passing.
I thought you were going to say because the people that they're trying to connect with aren't open to connecting with them.
No, I don't.
Is that frustrating for spirit?
No, I don't think that it's frustrating like us humans get frustrated.
Right.
I think that they understand. They're not emotionless, but would they love it if we could pick up on their signs and symbols? Would they love it if we could feel their closeness to us? For sure they would. But they also understand the conditions that we're living in as human beings. It's not easy. This is a very hard density that we're living in. But it's okay. It's an important journey, this human journey.
Somebody was saying, maybe we've actually talked about this before. I don't know.
Cooking.
Oh, I just doing some crostinis here. Thank you for telling me, because I almost burnt them.
Okay.
And I'm sauteing some mushrooms, and I just put a bit of the mushroom oil on these guys.
Okay. What does that oil smell like, by the way?
Oh my gosh, smell it. It is so good. It's like it feels like fall when you smell it.
Oh, the sage is major in that.
Yeah.
Oh, Christine, yum.
So good. So I'm just
wild mushroom and sage. This is amazing. Wow.
What I was just going to say is and we might have talked about this before, but have you ever heard, or you probably have, but where people say that when you're in spirit, like, I always wonder, like, well, you're old, and we talk about them, like, feeling no stress or pain or like resentment or anything like that. That's something that happens as you get wiser and older. Somebody might die at 80, but I was reading that people believe that spirit sort of lives around the age of 30. Is that a thing? Like, what is that?
Yeah. So again, you can never put just a blank statement out. Like you can't just say, spirit hovers at 30. That's not true.
Okay.
But does spirit often present themselves at an earlier point in their life? Yes, they do. That is very common, because if you think about back in your life when you felt your best, that's the easiest point for a spirit to express themselves.
Okay.
So in their 30s is often a time where people are just doing their best. Do you know what I mean? There's
Okay.
still a lot of life ahead of them. They're no longer in their 20s. They're starting to settle into some stuff in their life. Maybe they're having children. This is where a family is growing. It's really where a lot of joy is going on for them. So yes, you can have a gentleman, like I'll have a gentleman that, but they'll usually say to me that they died an old man, but the visual that they're giving me, they were in their 50s.
Oh, okay.
I see a lot of people present themselves in their 50s because the 50s is actually a really great time for a lot of people too, you know? So, but then I've had other people express themselves more in their 20s. So again,
It just
blank
depends.
statements, I try to stay as much away from, because each spirit is unique and different. I've had elderly women show up in their 90s and they're presenting in their 90s. So yeah, so I think each individual spirit should be listened to individually.
That's
If
fair.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of like people saying, you know, oh, if you passive suicide, you know, this is what happens to you in spirit. It's just not true. Each individual person has a different experience, and that needs to be respected. It's just like here on earth, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. So what are you making now?
So now I'm just going to make some little cherry tomato, basil cheese, and I'm going to just do some almost like a caprese salad with mozzarella, basically. Yeah.
Okay.
And then I've got some the crostinis I made, and then I've just sauteed some mushrooms with dill, and there it is there. And I'm going to set up these with a couple I'll leave for these guys for us to taste test.
Okay.
And then a couple will have mushroom and the salami with the oil.
Now, you know how I got both the white mushrooms and the crimini mushroom?
Yeah.
So I discovered that crimini mushrooms are good to eat to balance hormones. Did you know that?
That's good for us right now.
Yeah.
Truly, really good for us right now. And the
the
people around us.
yeah.
Like them.
This is looking so good.
Oh, good.
Okay. Here's the newest one.
Okay.
So, and I wanted to say his name right. Okay, see, because this is not so. Tony Bennett. Do you know who Tony Bennett is? Okay, so Tony Bennett is a singer. If you don't know who Tony Bennett is, because
I think most people know who Tony Bennett is.
oh, okay. Well, shame on me.
You didn't know who Tony Bennett was?
Well, okay, let me describe. So I'm getting ready for a Divine Self group.
Yeah.
I'm saying to spirit, okay, is anybody coming forward, or what kind of exercise am I doing? Because it's all spirit driven. I just ask spirit to help guide me what we're doing that night. Okay. Are you changing your mind?
Nope. I just changed my pattern of how I was putting them on.
Okay.
And then realized that's the perfectionist in me and it really doesn't matter. Do you
really
guys care?
Matter. No.
Do you care if it goes cheese, tomato, basil, or does it need to go basil, tomato, cheese?
Does your ADD or ADHD need it to be a particular way?
You know what? As you can see, I've just evolved. I put it on the plate as it was.
That's really great. Good for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm sitting at the table and I hear Tony, but this man has come forward to my left-hand side and he's saying that he is Tony, but he's a singer. And I was like, Tony, but you're a singer. And then I heard Tony Bennett and I was like, I am certain that Tony Bennett is a singer, but I could not tell you what Tony Bennett sang. Okay. So I'm like, okay, well, Tony Bennett's a singer. And I was like, you're going to have to do more. You're going to have to tell me something about yourself, and not music related. Just tell me something about yourself. He said, I have 2 daughters. So I thought, okay. So I go to Google and I type in Tony Bennett, 2 daughters. So up comes Tony Bennett. Now I can see the picture of him, which I recognize the picture of, but I still don't know what he's saying.
Right.
So, and by the way, I didn't know if Tony Bennett was dead. So I was like, okay, I got to see if he's passed away first before.
Is it a live spirit or a dead spirit?
Right. Or what is happening here to me? I don't know. So turns out that Tony Bennett did die in this last couple of years. I think like a year and a half ago or something like that. Anyway, so yes, he has 2 daughters. However, he has 4 children. He has 2 daughters and 2 sons. So I was like, Tony, if this is you, I really don't like that, because usually when spirit communicates, they're like, yes, I have 4 children. And then, they will share more about it, or they have 2 children, but literally that's the amount of children they have. So I'm like, okay, you have 2 daughters, but you actually have 4 kids and only 2 of them are daughters. So I said, I don't know why you didn't mention your sons. So at this point, I'm uncomfortable with
Really?
at this point, I'm uncomfortable. I'm not just going to go into
Because
my
you don't
session
trust spirit.
because I didn't
Okay.
trust
Okay.
that. I didn't trust that it was actually him.
Okay.
So even though I'm hearing Tony Bennett, and even though this man's owning being a singer, and even though, yes, he has 2 daughters, I still didn't trust that it was him.
Okay.
Enough to go into my group and say, and start saying a spirit is here.
Can I stop you for 1 second?
Yes,
And we're
please.
talking about trust
Yeah,
and trusting
trust.
him so we don't forget where we're at.
Do it.
This balsamic vinegar is really good,
Mhm.
but it's not the balsamic reduction that I need for those.
You do whatever you
Thank
want.
you. I just needed
You
permission
improvise. You
because
improvise. Which I have to do in
it
the
just
divine
wouldn't
self.
do the same thing.
Okay. Oh, look at, and that makes it so attractive too.
Okay, there we go.
I wish everybody could eat with us.
Yeah.
Okay, this is looking really beautiful. Please don't forget, we got to take a picture of this before we keep going, just doing a deep dive into the food after these things.
I know.
We don't take a picture.
Okay.
We're not okay. Anyway, so I don't quite trust. So the session was going to be in about an hour's time. And I said to him, if it's you, you're going to have to do something to wow me beforehand, because I'm not comfortable yet. And I'm not just arbitrarily going into the group with saying that there's a spirit there that's not actually there. Right. So it's half an hour before the session begins. And my daughter sends me a text message. Oh, by the way, I also said to him, you cannot show me through social media, because I've Googled your name. So when you go into Google, you Google somebody's name, or anything, a vacuum, suddenly you're getting advertisements for vacuums, or things are showing up, right? There's that whole
annoying
social media thing where, you type something in, not to be paranoid, but it's following, I mean, algorithms and all that kind of stuff. So I said, you cannot bring something up like a song through Google or something like that. I'm not going to take that. It's got to be something else to prove to me it's you. So 20 minutes before the session, half an hour before the session, my daughter sends me a text message. Okay.
Yeah.
And she says, Mom, my friend, I think it was Allie. Sorry, Allie, if it wasn't you. My friend did a journal page of my new cat, Soka. So Soka's this cute little cat, adorable that she's got. Her friend had come to see it a week before. Okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm going to add the photo into this video so you can see it. So she did she does a journaling, and she did this collage, Soka's name, the cat's picture, and she put all these, kind of like paper stuff. It's like a collage of stuff, right? But it's a journal page. And Mom's like, Keisha's like,
so cute.
Look at what she did. And she sends me the picture. Down at the bottom of the page, there is an advertisement card that says vintage. And at the top, it says Tony and Sons.
Are you serious?
It says Tony and Sons, 1969. And my jaw dropped. And I was like, you have got to be kidding me. And I said, okay, like Tony, okay. But
Tony and Sons.
But I said, why didn't you mention your sons? And this thing, and it makes no sense that this card is on this journal page. Like, I don't know why.
You got the receipts to prove it.
Yeah, no, 100%. But so here's one more step further. Not only does it say Tony and Sons, it says 1969.
Yeah.
So he says to me, look up the date. So I looked up the date, and 1969 is the very year that his son's mother filed for divorce from him. Oh. So not only does it say Tony and Sons, it also has the date that he divorced, or that the divorce was put in for the mother of those sons.
That is so crazy.
So he had 4 kids. He had 2 daughters from a wife later, and the first 2 kids he had were sons with another woman who'd That's a Zoom thing again.
Oh,
We're recording
Oh.
right now. I don't know how to turn that off, but I think it was because I made this. I'm going to make the sign again.
okay.
And maybe if I do that, we'll.
I don't know. All of a sudden, this confetti started coming all over the page. Oh my God.
Celebration.
It
from
is a
Spirit,
celebration.
Because it went like this. Will it do it again?
Oh my God.
No, it's not doing it again.
That's
So, okay.
funny.
Well, isn't that amazing?
That is
Like,
wild.
Without a word of lie, I'm going to attach.
Oh, and you're gonna
the
attach that
picture.
at the end. That's
Tony
so
and
cool.
Sons, not just Tony, not
That
just
is so
Tony and
neat.
Sons, Tony and Sons, and the date that his wife filed for divorce.
That's
I'm
so
just
cool.
so blown away. That's where my dad today, when I told him that story,
Yeah.
he was like, "Deb, how?" I'm like,
Yeah.
"Dad, I don't know
And
how.
sometimes you don't have the answer for
I
it. It
don't
just
have
is
the
what
answer for
is.
it. I just know that I trust."
Yeah.
I just know that I ask them for proof. I need validation. I need something
is
more to
so
say,
crazy.
you know?
I like that's the stuff that
The last
freaks me out.
there-
So
so those were
because it's so clearly a message.
I know.
That's where I get freaked out. And I know
Yeah.
it shouldn't be a matter of being freaked out because it's really a
Oh,
beautiful,
that's trippy.
it's a beautiful thing to be able to
really
do
beautiful.
that, you know?
It's really, really
But-
beautiful.
Yeah.
And I feel so blessed and I feel so touched that it happens the way that it does. And I feel overjoyed that these things are just like continual demonstrations that we live on. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that we can all learn if we want to.
Yeah.
To pay attention a little bit deeper, a little bit more to
Not in the
the
way in
spirit.
which I did, though.
just shove this right off of there. Let's
Okay, I gotta
put
get this
this
on.
front and center. How
Okay.
how gorgeous is that? Look at what you did.
It's pretty fun, hey?
So to John Lennon, thank you for your connections in the past and in the
Yes,
present.
thank you.
To Michael Jackson for a spectacular touchdown of acknowledging for people that your name was spoken and in such a trying time. And to Tony Bennett
That's
for
crazy.
for pushing the envelope so far that it was really not arguable that it had happened.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I appreciate all of them for extending themselves my way to just be that demonstration for other people that this stuff is possible and that it is happening. And thank
Those
you
are-
for doing this with me.
Yeah, those are just such great stories and confirmation of
Mhm.
that I'll
Mhm.
probably never get. But I'll
It's
keep working
coming.
on it. I'll keep scrying my hair in the shower for you.
Okay.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. And
right.
you know what?
Oh, what are you gonna try that?
I'm
I'm gonna
gonna
try
try
this one.
this.
This is gonna be interesting because this is the mushrooms with the mushroom infused. Oh, I didn't put garlic because you didn't give me garlic. Did you?
Nope.
No. I think, and then just cheese and basil and some balsamic vinegar. So cheers.
Cheers.
Love you.
Cheers. Love you all.